Good morning, and I'm here in Brussels in an interesting situation, but I want to talk a little bit about mobile right now and what that really means for me. So if you think about mobile, it's exploded more or less, the whole idea of the concept of mobile, and nobody really predicted that it would be so big. So to really understand where it's going, I think you have to understand a few basic things.
Hello.
So what is the meaning of mobile, and what is it we're looking for? So basically, it's really about motivation and behavior and understanding what people are wanting in their lives. So it's, for me personally, and I think for people that are really successful in companies, it's really about understanding behaviors and what people are really interested in and what they're trying to achieve. So motivation and behavior for the win, basically. So my background is design, and really it's about when you design things, it's about empathy, understanding what other people are trying to achieve, and really stepping in their shoes and understanding what their goal is. So it's the same for mobile. You know, when someone is doing something on their device, what are they trying to achieve? So some of you might know this video.
One more now. Better angle. Oh, check it. Did that come out okay?
That's the best one of the 300 pictures I've taken of myself today.
Every girl in the picture is locked into her phone.
Oh,
Every single one is dialed in. Welcome to parenting in 2015. They're all just complete. Oh, hold on. I'd take a selfie with the hot dog. Selfie with the churro. Selfie just of a selfie. A single here to fourth. And nobody noticed. He just collects all the phones. You're not getting them back to the end of the game.
So what's happening here is obviously the girls are taking selfies of themselves. And this video went viral because the way the announcers, it was at a baseball game, and the way the announcers were kind of mocking them and they were kind of shaming them. So it kind of went viral because I think a lot of us don't really understand what that means and what was really happening behind the scenes. So let's just see what is happening behind the scenes. So if we think about the selfie girls, that's what we call them, what you really need to know what happened. So what happened is they're at this baseball game, and the whole idea at the event, what they were trying to do is the announcers asked them to take selfies. So everybody in the stadium was taking selfies. It was not just the girls that were doing it, so everyone was doing it. So they took selfies, and that's what we see in the video, and obviously it's something we tend to see quite often, but it appears like they enjoyed themselves doing it. And they had a lot of fun. And for having fun and for really getting into this idea, this task that they were given, they were kind of mocked and shamed. And it went viral. But what happened in the end is the baseball team and the announcers apologized to them and offered them free tickets, which was quite generous because they did kind of shame them. And in the end, the girls, they were all from a sorority. And in the end, instead of accepting the tickets, they donated them to a good cause. So in this case, it was against, let me look, a New Leave. So it's basically against domestic violence. So that's the whole point. I think to really understand a situation, you have to really have empathy and understand the whole situation, not just what we see in the media. So this was supposed to work when we were meeting all together. And I wanted to ask everyone, when was the last time you took a selfie? And here I'm taking a selfie. She's from CNN. And this was a selfie I took in Stockholm. So I was going to ask everyone to take a selfie of themselves in the audience if we were all here, but there's only a few people here in the studio, so it doesn't really work. So I'm just going to skip this part. Let me just skip that apart. So what does that mean, basically? So if you think about mobile, by nature, we are social beings. We are social animals. Every human is a social animal. And society precedes the individual, and that's really important to know, because any technology that allows us to better communicate and work on this idea of what being social is going to be hugely adopted. So just to look at this, what does that mean? This is a double, actually. Man is by nature social. Society precedes the individual. And then this idea of 50 million users. How long does it take to get 50 million users? So radio took 38 years. Television, 13 years. And as we see it, it's just becoming quicker and quicker. And this was a version of Angry Birds. It wasn't the first Angry Birds, but it was a version. And it only took 35 days to have 50 million users, which is quite amazing if you think about it. That being said, although we are social, our identity is also formed by us individuals. And it's basically our wants and needs. So if you think about it, your wants and needs define who you are. So this we've seen before, this Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if you think about the basic things, psychological and safety, it used to be old things like keys and money were on the bottom of the pyramid. But now the mobile phone has taken the top tier of it, basically. So if you look up here, self-actualization, esteem, loving, belonging, the mobile phone has taken that. And it's even getting even more so. It's taken over the whole pyramid. But first, the Wi-Fi and battery life. You guys have seen this. But what's happening is the mobile phone is becoming a system for payment. So Apple Pay or Google Wallet. And then also being used to open up things like your keys. If you have a Tesla, there's apps. There's Drive Now, and then there's an app for a hotel chain, basically, to open up your door. And that means mobile is basically taking over our lives to some degree, if we allow it. So what happened in 1984? It was basically the first thing of the mobile phone, the first generation of the mobile phone. And McKinsey estimated in 1986 that the number of mobile phones in 2000 would be about 1 million, so which was pretty low. And based on this estimation in 1986, AT&T decides to say, okay, we're not going to invest in the mobile phone market because we don't think there's enough potential. And what happened is McKinsey was off by 108 million units. So the prognosis was 10,000% wrong, which is actually not so good if you're an expert. So it's like, oh shit, what happened? So when any new technology comes along and it really speaks to people and it's adopted exponentially, then the experts themselves become more and more irrelevant because things are happening so quick. And you see this time and time again with a lot of things. I like this quote from Clay Christensen. He's like the godfather of disruption. And he also didn't believe that the iPhone would be a big disruptor. But as we know now, in hindsight, as I say, hindsight is 20/20, the iPhone was hugely disruptive to the whole mobile market. Because mobile was always about the new scale. And right now, if you look at smartphones, they've basically gone exponential. And it pretty much, it destroyed the whole existing market. So thanks to this guy, Martin Cooper, we have the mobile phone, the first one. And then thanks to Steve Jobs, the late Steve Jobs, we have the smartphone, the current day smartphone. So what that means is, what does that mean exactly? So it's really about being connected, like I said in the beginning, and being social. And it's estimated it took, in the last 25 years, it took 3 billion people to be connected, which is, is pretty respectable. But like I said before, with exponential technologies, as soon as something comes along and it really helps people and supports people and what they want to do, it becomes exponential. So in the next 4 years, we're going to have 3 billion more people online. So what does that mean? I mean, for everybody in the Western world, that means obviously we're going to post more selfies and be more connected and stuff. But sometimes we tend to forget what the mobile is really good for as well. And therefore, you have to look outside of your comfort zone. So for like in African tribes, like this guy, he's communicating with his mobile phone. It's not a smartphone, it's a feature phone. Or these refugees, what they do is when they get somewhere, they take a selfie to tell everybody else that they've made it. Or when they get somewhere, they need to power up their phones because the smartphone is a really essential part of their lives when you're traveling, and everybody knows this. So here, just having power is extremely important too. So being able to charge your phone. So I have a few takeaways to think about when you're thinking about mobile. Number one, this idea of first principles, which is about physics. And it's starting with the most basic fundamental truths. And what that means is instead of relying on what happened yesterday or what we did a couple months ago or last year, think about what are the basic truths that you have and then move forward from there. And to do that, you really have to have this idea of a beginner's mindset. And what that means is, since not all of us can be innovators, you have to look to be an early adopter, early majority, because that's where the value is. If you wait too long, then you're going to be competing on price, and that's not where things are happening. Number two, this idea of collaboration. I think that's really important. And it's not so much about collaborating within your organization, which is extremely important. As we know, a lot of legacy organizations are built on silos, but it's also collaborating with other people not within your organization. And that's the hard thing. I think we have to teach ourselves to be better collaborators. An example of that is Google ATAP, that's a work group within Google, and they collaborate with over over 50 universities in the end, and they make it as easy as possible. How do you make it easy for your organization to collaborate with other people? And the last idea I have, or last takeaway, is this idea of complacencies. And what that means is, how do you disrupt yourself? How do you not become too comfortable? And that's also very, very difficult. So we're all used to this, being very comfortable and being in our comfort zone. But where all the really interesting stuff happens is outside that comfort zone. And that's where we need to go. So that what that means on a day-to-day thing is, like, instead of just walking the same way to work or the same way wherever, just trying something new or trying a new restaurant or trying new things out. And I think that's extremely important, because that's where all the interesting stuff happens. It's not in the middle, but it's on the side. So this is the last slide. And this is one I say quite often. If you live the questions, life will move you into answers. And then sometimes we forget, being grown-ups and being more mature, that it's not so much the answers that matter as much as the questions, because the questions keep us moving forward. So let me just play that last video, that beginning video for you guys, and then we'll wrap it up. Here's a video. Some of you might have seen this.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, for being here. Thank you for your great keynote. But I have a question for you. If you're now watching the live stream and you're in your office somewhere here in Belgium, what is, you think, the most interesting opportunity to address as a company today? So you're talking about the early majority, that's a nice spot to be in, because then the market is growing. But what is the most important opportunity now to play in?
I think the hardest part is to really understand what are people doing with their phone and what are they trying to achieve. At Google, we have this thing, we identify moments, or moments that matter, and there's 4 of them. And I won't go through them all, but I think it's really understanding, it's less about the tech, it's less about the device itself, and more about understanding people's behaviors. Because when you understand that, then you'll understand what are the opportunities.
So it's more social, actually, than technology in the end. So it's technology-driven, but at the end, it's social what makes a difference.
Right. I mean, because in the end, it's about us, right, as people. And even though, like, a great example is the conference today. Even though we couldn't all gather together, we still made it happen. And technology is the enabler, but people have to make that decision. And I think that's really key. How do you make that decision to do it? Go ahead and do it. I mean, and obviously, then you do need the tech. You need the cameras. You need the people to set up, and you need YouTube to stream it, or whatever it might be. But in the end, it is really understanding people's motivations and their behaviors, and understanding where is that going.
And it needs.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a safe flight home.
Cheers.
And speak to you again.
Okay. Take care.
So thank you very much.